Get ready to challenge conventional beliefs about what's possible in creating health, wealth, and happiness. You are listening to Playing on the Edge Radio with Megan Edge. This hit show is providing you with ways of sustaining radical and powerful changes in your life. It is time to open and expand your awareness, accelerate your well-being as Megan shares wisdom, teachings, and experience from a lifelong journey of the heart. Enact the power of radical change with ease and lift your desires to a new perspective. Now, here's Playing on the Edge Radio.
Yeah, everybody, I'm Dr. Pat. Guess what? The host of Playing on the Edge Radio is Megan Edge. Radical change with ease. Oh boy, I'm looking for this show today. I've been praying. It's okay, I want to just sit back and listen and turn this over to Megan right now. Guess what today's show is about? Are you listening? Mm-hmm. Learning to trust your intuition.
Yeah.
OMG, Megan, right?
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
Well, I can tell you that it's very painful if we don't learn this. At least my experience is my life has been extremely painful not following this. But you teach people all over the world. I mean, people come, they go to your workshops, they go to your seminars, they learn what you learn, but you had to learn this firsthand, didn't you?
Absolutely, I did. And that's part of what makes the teaching and the sharing of it, I think, so powerful, in that our personal stories are what we lead with. So being able to demonstrate to someone who's really struggling with their intuition, who's not had a lot of evidential success with making choices in their lives that appear to have positive outcomes, to be able to share that that's an experience I'm familiar with, helps to build trust in the teaching of what it is that I'm sharing, and really make it clear to people that when I say I want to empower you to know how to trust your intuition and yourself above all other voices, that I mean it.
I love that we're talking about this today. And, you and I have had different journeys about intuition, but the bottom line is we got here. Yeah. Let's stop for a minute and talk a little bit about what intuition is. And one of the myths about intuition is it's only for 1% of the people, right? And so we need to kind of bust through that crust for a minute here and talk about what is intuition and how do you describe it?
First of all, we are an intuitive species. We are also a psychic species. And while that may sound way out there, stop for a moment and consider this. We generally make up our mind about someone within the first 3 seconds that we meet them. And that's not a conscious thing. That's us picking up on subtle cues, or sometimes very evident cues, that we're receiving from the other person about how they feel, about the way that they show up in the world, about whether or not they're going to be somebody that we're going to connect with. There's this incredible cascade of information that comes to us in a very short period of time on that first handshake or that first eye contact. And there's this entire body language that we know, we intuit it because it's part of our language system. So this idea that only 1% of the population is intuitive is absolute BS. And it's what I want people to know. And it's so funny, Pat, because in every class I teach, in every workshop I teach, there's always at least one beautiful person that my heart absolutely goes out to because they have convinced themselves that everybody else on the planet can do it but them. And they're my favorite people to work with because I love being able to demonstrate to them how simple and how easy it is to recognize our intuitive voice when we know what to call it. Right?
Yeah.
So the skeptics, and I love the skeptics as well, the skeptics who say to me, I don't believe in intuition, I don't believe in psychic abilities. My response to that is, have you ever had the experience of knowing who was going to be calling before the phone rang and then picking up the phone and it was that person? Mm-hmm. Or have you ever thought of somebody that you haven't seen in ages and then you run into them? Have you ever wished that you could have something and then you start seeing it everywhere? And they go, oh, well, yeah, I've had those experiences. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about these great, huge, big decisions that we have to make in life. That is part of it. But what we're really looking at is, how do you work with your intuition every single day and don't realize that that's the process that you're engaged in?
Yeah. I got an email. I get a lot of emails. So do you. We get like emails. Like an hour goes by and I'm doing a radio show and I got 100 emails. But I actually do read my emails, or at least so I got this email just in time to talk with you about. And the email was how to get back to your true north. And I'm reading this, and nothing in there is about intuition. And I'm thinking, because I work on you and I prepare for these shows for our listeners, just so they know.
Oh, yeah. A lot goes into them.
And I don't know how we even know there's a true north without intuition.
So are we talking of the true north as the guide, the direction that we go in for this kind of...
I think it's metaphorical, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. And I obviously hadn't read your email, so I don't know if this is what the person was referring to. When I hear true north, I think of the 4 directions, and I think of how I use the energy of the 4 directions in my teachings to help my students orient themselves to the energies that are showing up for them, and being able to use that template of the 4 directions as one of the many tools that we have at our disposal to tap into our intuition and our psychic energies.
Yeah. I want to ask you this question. I got a lot of questions right now. Some people hear, some people see, some people know. What is the intuitive voice? How does it sound? And, the other part of this is we like to put ourselves and others in categories. So, for example, somehow we kind of think, oh, CEOs, executives of the company, of companies, they don't have any of that. They're logical. We even look at our leadership and we're like, no, they don't have it. But let's talk about this, because what is it? How does it show up for people? Are there different ways? And then, is it possible to create an everyday sense of intuitive being? A lot of questions. Go for it.
Yes. Okay, so yes, and yes.
Yay!
Simple answers.
Wow, a lot easier than my last hour.
One of the most consistent things that successful people have in common is that they trust their intuition. And there's this really interesting thing that's been happening at the highest levels of corporation and even government to some extent, which is that those CEOs, those owners of companies, those high executives, men and women, are being sent off to intuition camps, where they go on these weekends or these week-long retreats, and they get to play and reconnect with their intuition. And it isn't that they didn't have intuition before, it's that they have maybe forgotten what it is like to be in that beautiful, innocent trusting of their intuition, which is what children are in all the time. And really all we need to do is watch some kids playing, or our own children, to see that intuitive energy and how easily it flows before these children are told that it's just their imagination, or they shouldn't trust themselves. And then for adults, there's this, it's like a climbing back out of this pit of self-doubt, back into a sense of confidence in being able to trust what their higher self and their wise self is communicating with them.
Mm. I get asked, and I know you get asked, and we talked about this before, but it's really so relevant to what we're talking about today. For those of you just tuning in, you're listening to Playing on the Edge Radio. You're listening right here on our network, Transformation Talk Radio, but also on Facebook Live. So what we want to do today is we want to make sure that you all know how to get your questions in here. Get some help from Megan. I mean, this is like amazing that you can call in and get some help today. 1-800-930-2819. the other thing is, if you go to Transformation Talk Radio, you'll see that we have a player up there that will just enable you to just type in your question. Please do that. Today's show is about intuition, and it's more than that. It's about listening. It's about learning to trust it. And, this next question is, here it is, this gift. I call it a gift that we all have. We're afraid to use it. Yeah. We're afraid to trust it. Sometimes we're even afraid to acknowledge it, right? It's like, if I acknowledge this, everybody's going to think I've lost my mind. I don't worry about that now because they do anyway. But we're afraid.
Yeah, we are. We are. And it comes back to the previous question that you posed about logic versus intuition. And what I would like our listeners and our watchers to understand is that there is an incredible structure to our intuition. This is not actually some airy-fairy woo-hooey thing. And even if it were, that would be awesome. I don't want to discount the wooey-hooey because that's what I work with. What I see as I teach intuition is how fundamentally logical it actually is. And that we do ourselves an enormous disservice if we disconnect ourselves from our understanding of our own knowing. And then when we look at the reasons why we wouldn't trust our intuition, the biggest one that comes up for me is because our intuition is telling us the truth. It's telling us our truth. And if we have put ourselves in a position where we have stopped listening to our truth, that is what is for our highest good, and we have allowed ourselves to get held in unhealthy patterns of accommodating other people's higher good, and rather than our own or instead of our own, we might stop listening to the intuition. In fact, we often do. And I think of my own situation in the marriage that I was in, and I know this has come up in previous episodes because it's so relevant to the journey that I've been on. And I want to say this at the outset, there were lots of beautiful things about that marriage. And I had married my best friend, and we had a lot that was really beautiful. But there was a fundamental disconnect for me in that I stopped listening to my own inner wisdom, my own higher self, and allowed myself to accommodate somebody else in that. When it became evident through those big wake-up calls that we talked about in the previous episode, that I couldn't stay and be healthy and be happy where I had gotten myself to, the thought of changing all of that was absolutely terrifying, right? Because we can be in the knowing of a job not being a good fit for us, a person not being a good fit for us, even a belief system not being a good fit for us. Here come all my goosebumps when I'm saying.
I know.
These are one of my indicators, my intuitive indicators right here. And our body will always tell us the truth of any situation. It will always tell us what we need to do to be in our highest place of well-being. But the overwhelm of imagining what it was going to be like to step into being a single mom with 2 little kids and no footing in a career or a job path because I'd left my work at the bank to raise my beautiful girls, and also what it was going to do to our friends, our family, my relationship with him. You know, in the middle of the night, these are the kinds of things that move us into anxiety and worry and what if, and I can't, and it's just not worth it. And we convince ourselves that we can make do with what we've created, even though we know that it's not in our highest good any longer. And when you ask that question, Pat, about what does it sound like? You know, how do we know what is our intuition and what's just our doubting demon or our inner critic or our panic and our anxiety? My answer to that is the intuitive voice is that still point. It's when we let ourselves get really quiet and we ask the question and the answer drops in. And each person's intuitive voice is slightly different, but I can tell you this, it doesn't sound like your mother's voice, and it doesn't sound like your grade 2 teacher's voice or your father's voice or anybody else's voice who you may have set up an expectation of meeting their needs. It's nobody else's voice.
Yeah.
It's your own voice.
Wow. When we come back, we're going to talk about this voice in much more detail. But one of the things that we're also touching upon is the idea of trust. Mm-hmm. And when you put trust and intuition together, there is an energy and a frequency and a vibration. It is this natural blending, right, of these two elements that come together as if they've always belonged together and we have separated them, right? Absolutely. And so when we come back, I want to talk with you not only about this voice, but how we ration ourselves as to the amount of good intuition, trusting intuition, good knowing. We have these rations that we assign to ourselves that says, oh, wait a minute, I don't think I deserve getting that every day. Mm. I got it yesterday. I think today maybe it belongs to Linda. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this. We're also going to be talking about, what happens on the way to not following our intuition. Does intuition turn its back to us? Mm. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Have you ever had your heart broken? I have. I know what that feels like. I also know it's possible to heal your broken heart. I know because I did it. And I did it with the help of these beautiful hearts that I started to see in nature when I needed to see them the most. And from there, I created this gorgeous healing toolkit called the Healing Hearts Oracle Cards and Guidebook, published with Balboa Press and Hay House. In it, I share with you my personal story of heartbreak and healing, how to work with oracle cards as a healing tool, and the stories of each of these beautiful hearts as they cross my path. You also receive in your beautiful box the Healing Hearts oracle cards, a gorgeous pen, bookmark, and a journal. Everything you need to inspire you on your healing path. You can purchase the Healing Hearts oracle cards and guidebook through Balboa Press, Amazon, and directly through me, and I'd be happy to sign it for you. Blessings on your heart's journey.
Hey everybody, welcome. Hey, listen, you're listening to Playing on the Edge Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to do this with Megan Edge. She has a fabulous hit show, which is all about radical change with ease. Before we continue our conversation about are you listening, learning to trust your intuition, we're gonna talk story too. I want to take a minute, if we could, Megan, and just let folks know how they can find out more about you, how they can find out about how they can work with you, attend your workshops, all of the above.
Awesome. My website is meganedge.ca. You can also find me on Facebook at Megan Edge Healing or Megan Edge. You can find me on YouTube at Megan Edge Healing. Megan Edge Healing is the business name. And then Megan Edge I'm also LinkedIn. I think I'm on Twitter. Places you can find me. And then in terms of the workshops, my focus is shifting to this creating of a student community of healers that I've been working on for the last couple of years. So anyone who takes my Confident Healer program, which is the Intuitive Intensive Healers program, it's a 10-month certification program, or wants to learn the intuitive energy massage, which is a new healing system that I've created. Once you have participated in these classes, you get welcomed into our healers community. And my focus now is in supporting these amazing healers that are going out into the world using their own beautiful gifts plus the systems that I've created. So my focus is now towards that community, and I'm not doing as many public workshops. Having said that, though, I love public speaking. So if you've got an event and you would like me to come and speak to at that event about these subjects that we've been talking about since we started our show, drop me a line. I would be more than happy to show up for that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is really the time to get out and speak and, and be in front of people. And I think that's beautiful the way you do it. Certainly, folks have an opportunity to study with you, to work with you, all in the spirit of what we're talking about today.
Right.
I'm going to make a statement. I want to hear, as a continuation. I believe that in the world we're living in right now, and by the way, it's not going to get any better, it's going to get faster, that there is so much information to process, whether you're working at your job or you're walking in to get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of information to process. And sometimes we can take the logical, rational route, put the pros and cons on paper, look at the effects and all that. Other times, and a lot of times, not. This is really now the time to learn how to bring this forth, isn't it? And so I want to ask you about what it is that we can do to help people know that there is a trusting process and there are ways that you will see the results of that trust, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well, certainly part of that, Pat, is in us sharing our stories, because we have this unique platform in which we can speak to an enormous audience, most of whom we don't ever get to see and meet, but we get to share their energy. The more that we can demonstrate through our own life experiences what the results are, the benefits are, the ease is in our lives when we learn to listen to that inner voice and to trust it and to follow it, the easier I think it becomes for other people to believe that it's possible for them. And I want to share, I was doing a workshop on intuition, and I put the question to the room, hands up, how many people have a story about when they didn't listen to their intuition? And everybody's hand went up. And I said, great, wouldn't you rather have a story about when you did listen to your intuition? Like, what if that story started with, one day I was walking down the street and I listened, and here's what the results were. So we had another whole, show of hands that everybody wanted to have that experience. I think sometimes what happens, though, is that because we tend to be drawn to drama, we are more comfortable having stories that are about when we didn't listen to our intuition and the dramatic result of that, than we are about having a story from when we did listen to our intuition and it wasn't dramatic.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think that I've learned, and I want to talk with you about it, is life seems to get easier.
And when you listen to your intuition.
Yeah. And what I mean by that is that intuition is like this natural nutrition. And when it's not followed, there in my life has been a course or a pathway that I go down that has some unforeseen obstacles in it. And I have countless stories about this. And, I don't know when the light bulb went on. But the other thing is, and I want to ask you this, sometimes if we share our intuition or what we're thinking and doing with others, that is where I've gotten into a little bit of trouble. Because I'm pretty confident in, I know this is the thing to do. And then I'll mention it and somebody will say, well, that's ridiculous. Or something like that. Can you talk about, should we keep this to, how do we manage our intuition, I guess?
That's a great question. And it is one that often comes up when I'm doing my trainings, especially if it's an introduction training. Yeah, there's this muck and this mire that gets in the way of us trusting what we know to be our truth. And that question about if we happen to receive information about somebody else, what would be helpful for them, what kind of guidance could be the thing that's going to make a difference in their lives, is it okay to share that information? Well, think of it like this. You and your best friend are sitting down on the sofa with a glass of wine or beer or tea or whatever it is, and you're chatting, and she's telling you about all the things that are going on in her life, and she's coming to you for guidance. And you get that hit of inspiration or wisdom, and you say to her, well, my gosh, have you ever thought of it like this? What if you were to try this? And she says, that's brilliant. I never thought of that before. Right in that moment, you've shared an intuitive inspiration that came to you for her. And in sharing it with her, you've helped her. She doesn't have to accept it. But what would it be like for you if you didn't share it with her? Right? And I know that it's not always the case that when we share something with someone that's come to us about what could be good for them, it's going to land for them. And they may completely deny it. They may say, no, thank you. They may point and laugh at us. But none of their reaction or response needs to change what we know to be our truth in our body, whether the information is for us or for somebody else. Mm-hmm. Having said that, if I get a hit, for example, if I'm in the grocery line and I get a hit about the person in front of me, I look at all the food they've got down there. I think, ooh, I think they'd be better off without all those cheesies. That's not my place in that moment. It's none of my business. It's not my place. I give them my card, though, and say, hey, just thought you might like to come and see me. I have a feeling some guidance could be helpful for you right now.
Wow. Well, and part of this is really learning discernment around those things, and sometimes just can't help myself. But before we go to break, I want to ask you, can you talk a little bit about Confident Healer, what it is, when it's available for people? Because part of this, too, is you incorporate all of the things in the toolkit and you move that information and knowledge forward. How can people find out more about that class and what it does?
The Confident Healer is this 10-month healing program that I've created out of the last 12 years of the work that I do, as well as the last 49 years of my life. Every module that we study in the program is filled with tools and techniques that I've worked with my clients and former students with that has helped people understand themselves better and have methods to help other people along this healing journey. And we dive into things like past lives and working with past life regression as a healing tool. And the students go through their own journey of understanding and remembering their past lives. We talk about spirit guides and how to work with channeled energies. The last one we had on Sunday was about manifesting and helping the students move through blocks that they might have to a sense of deserving, and getting really they want their life to look like, and then the tools for how they can manifest that, how they can make that happen. And by the end of these 10 months, they have this beautiful toolkit and they have the support to know how to be successful in their business as a healer. So I'm just about to graduate 4 beautiful women. They have got one more workshop left, and the next program begins in September of 2018. So I'm opening up the registration for that, and women are welcome to come into that program. There is an in-person component to the program. It is not completely online. So students would have to have the capacity to come in once a month for these amazing full-day workshops that we do. And they're so worth it. It's such a beautiful part of the program. Yeah, and then the other training, which is the intuitive energy massage training, that's an ongoing training. And those are 3-day trainings for each level, and then a master teacher component to that as well. And those are starting up again in September too. So all the information's on my website, or connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. And let's talk. Let's see if it's a fit.
Well, I'm so glad that you have that, because, I too do the same thing. I'm not one of these, let's put them all online, because there's something about the magic and the power when you bring people together. And so I'm so glad that you're doing that. So many people have stopped doing it. But, this is what we're hearing now. People that are wanting to learn and wanting to grow, they really want to look into the eyes of another person. So I'm so glad you're doing that. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we've got lots more. We're probably going to skip the next break, but, for now, Shorty, we'll be right back with Megan Edge.
If you've ever had a broken heart, you know how painful that can be, and how long it can sometimes take to heal it. I'm Megan Edge, author of The Heart's Journey, Healing Hearts Oracle Cards and Guidebook, published with Balboa Press and Hay House. In The Heart's Journey, I share with you my own heartbreak and how I healed it through the beautiful hearts that found me in nature. From taking photographs of these hearts for myself, I've created this beautiful toolkit, which includes the guidebook, which has my story, how to work with oracle cards as a healing tool, and the story of each of these hearts as they cross my path. I've also created a beautiful journal. There's a pen, a bookmark, and of course, the 42 Healing Hearts Oracle cards. You can purchase this beautiful healing toolkit to inspire you on your own healing of your broken heart through Amazon, Balboa Press, and directly through me. And when you order directly through me, I'd be happy to sign it for you. Blessings on your heart's journey.
Yeah, everybody, welcome back. So great to have all of you tune us in, turn us on. I am so thrilled to be here with Megan Edge because this is Playing on the Edge Radio, Radical Change with Ease. Are you listening? Learning to trust your intuition today? You're probably listening on the radio, probably on the podcast, or you're probably watching on Facebook Live. Wherever you're kind of watching and listening, welcome. It's so great to be connecting with all of you. We're talking about this idea of trusting intuition, and now we're going to talk about what does it mean to listen, what does it mean to act, and how is any and all of that empowering? How does it get us from where we are to where we really want to go? And I know, Megan, you've got like a giant toolkit here for this.
I do. Everything that I have created, everything that I work with is from an intuitive process in having learned that my own voice is the most powerful voice in my world. And I know from my own past experiences, when I have felt shut down or felt like it wasn't safe to talk, to say the things that I needed to say, to trust my intuition, when I second guessed myself, it didn't feel good in my body. And in fact, I believe that that's part of where, at the energetic level, the fibromyalgia came from. The various surgeries that I've had in my lifetime, I've had a lot.
Yeah.
The way that our bodies will hold on to the information and guidance and wisdom and truth that is ours until we're ready to really know it and own it, and to move through the fear that we might have around the consequences of speaking our truth. And we're joking and laughing about intuition, but there is a really serious side to it, which is that many people have the experience of things not going right when they have taken a stand and said, this is what I need and this is what I want.
Yeah.
And certainly for me, I know that when I would take a stand in my marriage and say no more of, fill in the blank, my intuition about something that was going on was often belittled.
Right.
Like, don't you worry your pretty little head about that.
Yeah.
That kind of idea. And we get it a lot as women. There's this belief that women are more intuitive than men. I don't think that that's true, but I do think that women have been given more of an opportunity to work with their intuition. And on the one hand, be lauded for it. And on the other hand, be almost criminalized for it. Right? Because it's just a woman's thing. So we don't have to pay a lot of attention to it. So no wonder there's so many people walking around not trusting their own voice. And the reality is that when you start trusting your own voice, your life is going to change. And while at the end of it, it may be for a lot better, in the moment that you're stepping into your truths and realizing that you need to follow your intuition and leave that marriage or leave that relationship or that job, it's not always the easiest. But if you could trust that you can do it with ease, and you can trust the voices in your head. Although I say to my students, when the men in white coats show up,
yeah,
if you're hearing voices in your head, what do you say?
Yeah.
He chimes in, no.
Well, part of this too is, you and I have talked about this. I knew some strange way that I was not going to finish out my 25-year tenure with the telephone company. I knew it years before. I knew that I needed to move on, and none of it made logical, rational sense. Why would I pick a fight 6 months away from my eligibility to a full pension? Well, one, I didn't know it, but I'm glad I didn't. But the other thing is that there was a knowing and a sense that I needed to move in a certain direction.
Right.
Sometimes we get afraid. What have you discovered about moving past that stage fright, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, what I would say to that, and this is also what I teach, is that there are no mistakes. So just let that land for a moment. In your entire life, you have never made a mistake. You've made choices, and then you've had the experience of those choices. And sometimes the experience didn't feel good, and sometimes it felt really good. And so then we usually assign a value to that. And we say, well, the experience that didn't feel good must have been the mistake, and the experience that felt good must have been the right choice. But really, at the end of the day, what you gain from both of those directions is experience. And you get to decide what you're going to do with that experience. So I could choose to say, I never should have married that man. But first of all, that would be a lie. It wouldn't be true. I should have married him. I did marry him. That's what I was supposed to do. Right?
Right.
Because of all the amazing things that came out of that, including my 2 beautiful daughters.
Right. Right.
So, right, like what I'm saying is that there's always a choice as to how we view the experiences of our lives.
Right.
And if we feel like we've had a really difficult life, we could decide from that we don't know how to listen to our own inner voices, and that we can't trust ourselves. But when we do a reframe on that, and we decide to give those life experiences purpose and reason in our lives, suddenly we create a new relationship, not only with those experiences, but with ourselves as well. And that allows us to see the benefit of really tuning into our own wisdom and acting on that wisdom.
Yeah, one of the things I love about what we're talking about is it's always, what do they say, Monday morning quarterbacking? It's always like, oh yeah, everybody wants to talk about maybe should have run the ball, not thrown the ball, all of those things. But what we don't understand, that somehow, at least this is my belief, I'd love to know what you think about it, is somehow if we're meant to get from here to there, and this was my question before, does intuition give up on us? Oh, look hey, hi buddy, look who's in your picture over there.
Everybody, this is my dog, Frankie.
Hi, Frankie. All right. See, Frankie's learning a little something here today.
She's my energy dog.
I know, I just got totally distracted right there. But that's what I love about doing this show, right?
Yeah.
But this idea that we get one chance, and if we don't take it, intuition disappears, trust disappears, with the door shuts. I don't know, like how much of that is true?
I believe our perception of that could become true for us. I don't believe it is true. I really don't believe it's true. And here's an example. Let's say that you are looking for your soulmate. And you're trying so hard to find this soulmate. You're on dating sites. You're asking all your friends to set you up. You're constantly looking everywhere you go. Is that him? Is that him? Or is that her? And what you miss is that he or she just walked right past you. However, if this relationship is meant to happen, it will keep trying. The energies will keep working. Spirit is incredibly patient with us. Our own inner knowing and wisdom is incredibly patient with us. And this is when you hear these marvelous stories when 2 people's paths finally, crash into each other, and they discover that they were on the same ferry boat 5 years ago, or they attended the same college 20 years ago, and they think, gosh, if only we'd connected then. But the thing is, they didn't.
Right.
And opportunity kept showing up until they finally did. And when they finally did, it was the perfect time, because now they got to be these 2 people together. Different from who they would have been 20 years ago together.
Well, then this is really talking about living an intuitive life now. Now we're talking about living an intuitive life. How do we move forward. And that's part of the work that you do, right?
Yeah.
And, we can learn how to be like, acutely aware of these instances, or we can learn how to create these instances known as intuition and trust, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And
absolutely.
so let's talk about this. What does it mean to live an intuitive life? And what is it that you're creating about this for people?
Well, I'll speak from my own personal experience first. What I love about trusting my intuition and living an intuitive life is how much ease I can invite into my day-to-day mundane, making dinner, going grocery shopping, picking up the mail kind of experiences, because I believe that every single thing we do has a spiritual component to it. I don't believe the spiritual path is over here and the mundane path is over here. I think that right now in this time, we're being asked to walk both. Right. And where 300 years ago, you and I would have probably been in a nunnery or a monastery or some other spiritual place outside of the day-to-day life, so we could be spiritual, separate from the people who were cooking dinner and plowing the fields and all of that. That's not the case anymore. We don't get to do that anymore.
Right.
Right. We're being asked to come into our lives, trusting our intuition, trusting spirit, trusting that there's a higher purpose and reason for everything, and seeing what that is like, and then being able to demonstrate that for other people so that we can help them feel empowered in their own knowing and wisdom. Because quite frankly, Pat, at the end of the day, I don't want anybody using me as a crutch. I have no intention of telling anybody what to do or how to do it. I would like to help them find their own answer, which I know they have. I know it's inside of them, so that they can feel the strength of their own decisiveness, whatever the results are. Right?
Yeah.
I think the thing about living an intuitive life is that we have to step out of getting hooked into the result or the proof or the evidence, and truly step into a flow of allowing, so that even when circumstances show up that appear on the surface to be difficult, we can step into a place of curiosity and ask, that's interesting. I wonder why that showed up.
Yeah. And let's talk about this, because sometimes we get drawn to things, we think about, where am I going? How am I getting there? Why am I getting there? But let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
You're being drawn, and this is exciting about next show we're going to do.
Yeah.
You're being drawn to a place that has fascinated so many people, and you're getting ready to go there. Tell us about where you're going and the next show.
We are going to Iceland. And by we, I mean my family, my 2 daughters and my husband and I are hopping on a plane on the 5th of July or 10th of July. And we are heading to Iceland for 2.5 weeks. And we're going to bring Playing on the Edge to Iceland, which is so exciting because truly Iceland is on the edge. The edge of the North Atlantic, the edge of 2 continental plates. It's on the edge right now of huge shifts and change in its own culture, cultural identity, economics, as millions and millions of people are showing up every year to enjoy the natural abundance that Iceland has. So we're going to be speaking with a dear friend of mine there, and she's going to be telling us about her experience as a native Icelander with all of these incredible changes that are happening. And the intuitive piece of it for me is that, in fact, I've always wanted to go to Iceland. I've been fascinated by Iceland since I was a little girl. And it was last summer she came and stayed with us and invited us to come to Iceland. Now, here's the thing about intuition. It will bring you opportunities that you get to say yes or no to. Right? So where I'd always wanted to go to Iceland, here comes an opportunity. I could have said, oh, no, the timing's not right. No, it's going to be too much money. No. I could have done that. And instead, I just went immediately to yes. It's showing up. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. I'm not sure how we're going to get there. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. I don't know when we're going to go. I'm going to say yes now. And then I'm going to allow all of the ways in which it can manifest to show up for me intuitively, and say yes each time they show up, so that we can make it happen and we can be there and we can bring the experience and share it with our audience as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a Facebook Live from there too. And hopefully we'll have some great pictures, because that's something you also do super, super well. I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be great, isn't it?
It's going to be amazing. And one of the things I'm really looking forward to is finding the hearts in Iceland. Because as you know, that's one of my symbols. That's one of the things that I work with intuitively. That's what the heart's journey is all about, are the beautiful heart photographs that I took as I found those hearts in nature, and as those hearts helped me move through the divorce. I continue to find those hearts. For me, there's still this beautiful symbol, this intuitive understanding that I'm following my heart. Right? I'm following my heart. So I know that the moment we land and set foot in Iceland, those hearts are going to start showing up for me. It's one of the ways that we can work with our intuition, is to ask for, from our higher self or from spirit, a symbol that when we see it, we'll recognize that that's for us.
Wow.
Some people it's feathers, some people it's money, some people it's hearts. For me, it's the hearts. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful, though? I mean, it is. It's different for every person. And I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because part of this, too, isn't it, is understanding how to be aware of what the signs are. Right now, what we're going to do is Megan has put together something incredible. 8 steps to becoming a master manifester. And we have 4 copies of this to give away, this fabulous, fabulous ebook. And the way I want to do it is, if you're on Facebook, please type in there, I would love the Master Manifester. If you're listening, we're taking callers, 1-800-930-2819, 1-800-930-2819. We definitely need contact information from those of you calling in, and an email account. So please make sure you give it to Benny. And Facebook, just raise your hand, and we're going to need some information from you too, because Master Manifester is part of the conversation and the dialogue about intuition.
Absolutely.
I want to get to something here in the few minutes that we have left, and that is that these shows we're doing and how this is being built, from the very first conversation, is also an intuitive process. So intuition can also be a process.
Oh, absolutely. And it is, when I was saying earlier in the show, there's a structure to working with your intuition. That this is what I'm talking about. There's a flow, but there's a structure. And for me, the first structure is the curiosity piece. I wonder what it would be like if, right? So when Jessica first contacted me to say, hey, we've got this great radio network and we'd love for you to be a part of it, the first place I went to was, I wonder what that would be like. What would it be like to have my own radio show? And then as I asked that question, the things come up to the surface that are there for us to work with. Those are the things that, if we're not tapped into our intuition, might get in the way of following our intuition. The doubting demon, the backpedaler, the inner critic. These are 3 of my favorite aspects of ourselves that we learn to work with when we do the Confident Healer program, is to let that come to the surface, right? Okay, so the doubt might come up as, well, who am I to have a radio show?
Oh.
Right? The inner critic would be like, are you kidding me? You sound dreadful on video. Everybody's voice sounds different, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
The backpedaler could be like, no way, no, we're just going to stay small. We're not going to take that next big step. So as each of those ideas surface in response to the curiosity, we can start to work with them. We can ask these fundamental questions. Is it true? Is it true that I would have nothing to say on the radio to people? If I'm afraid of how I might be received, well, where's that coming from? Let's do some work around that. How real is that, right? And all of these doubts, as they show up when we work with our intuition, they're just there to keep us safe. They're just doing the job we've told them to do all along, which is to keep us in a comfort zone that we're familiar with, even if it feels uncomfortable. Yeah. There is a certain leap of faith that you have to get to with intuition.
Thank you.
Which would be the next step, really.
And I think that's probably, we're going to talk about that in the next show, or one of the shows is, what does leap of faith really look like? What are the components of it? because I know I have stories, I know you have stories, and I know the people listening get these great insights, and yet we still don't act. But what is it about intuition that could literally relieve the pain of procrastination? We'll talk about that, right? When hopefully from Iceland.
Well, what I would want to leave everybody with is this. Just say yes.
Yeah.
Just, you know what? If you can't make a mistake, if you want to believe that that's true, and that's what I believe, that I can't make a mistake, then the burden is lifted. So I'll follow my intuition and I'll see what happens. I'll just see what happens. And then I'll have my experience of it. And it will give me something. It will always teach me something. And then whatever that is, I'm going to share it with you.
Oh my gosh. Awesome. Megan, thank you so very, very much. Would you please give out your information again? And thank you for today.
So I think it's right down here. I'm learning. I'm still learning. I love it. meganedge.ca is my website. There's links on the website to the YouTube channel, Megan Edge Healing on YouTube, Megan Edge Healing on Facebook, Megan Edge Healing on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can email me directly. I love hearing from people. I love having that opportunity to talk with you and see what you need and how I can support you.
And don't forget, next time from Iceland.
From Iceland, Transformational Talk Radio and Playing on the Edge. Iceland.
Woo! All right, everybody, we're going to take a short break. We got another hour coming up on Transformational Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Pat, Megan Edge. And you know what? Follow your intuition today. Even if it's for the moment, for the one time, follow. Let's see where you go. We'll see you next time.